Hey y'all, Dr. Brianna Whiteside here, and welcome to the Octavia Butler mixtape course. Today we are discussing or wrapping up Octavia Butler's Mind of My Mind, my favorite book of the Patterning series, and I'm super excited to chat with y'all today, hear what you're thinking, how you're feeling. We're moving swiftly through the Patternist universe, and I want to know how y'all feel about it. Right? How y'all feeling? I know that on the Substack, we did start talking about it, but I know a lot of people, do not share their ideas on the Substack. And so feel free to share them here as we get ready to discuss Mind of My Mind. Just as a reminder, we are starting Parable Nothing. We are starting Survivor next week. Or discussing Survivor next week. So I want to remind you all that Survivor is on my Substack. Please download it off the Substack. Okay. I can't let it live online. Right. And so it's on the Substack. It was posted last week. Please, if you want it for your own personal possession, if you want to read along with the class, download it from the Substack. Okay, so all of the Butler scholars or people who want to read the entire Patternist series and who cannot read Survivor because it is out of print, go over to the Substack and make sure you download it download it before next week. But after we finish that text, I'm going to just take it off the Substack, so it'll be gone forever. Also, what else do I have to tell you? I think that's it. I think that's all I have to tell you, right? So chat, please start liking the video, right? If you want to come up to discuss the book tonight, you want to be a part of the panel, just go ahead and click that guest icon at the bottom and we will hop right in. I know y'all got a lot to say. I know y'all have a lot of thoughts about this text. This is probably one of the, if we're thinking about scholarship on Octavia Butler's works, first of all, let me just say that the Patternist series is the least studied series of Butler. Generally, people were hyper focusing on the Xenogenesis trilogy. And then when the pandemic happened and with the election and the re-election, arguably, of Donald Trump, people started returning to the Parable series. And so scholarship on Butler's Patternist series is lacking, though it is her first published attempt at world building, at people building, at writing herself into the conversation, right? And she does expose us to the largest network of people in this universe. And so it is my favorite universe, if I'm honest, but I'm curious as to know your thoughts. So if you're not on the panel, I'm just asking you to like the video, get the likes up, and also share your thoughts. Let me know what you think before we get in here. Sir Maxim says, so you're saying we're trailblazers? Absolutely. Absolutely. Valerie says Survivor can be downloaded from Ocean of PDF. Not sure what that is, but if y'all want to download it from there, you can, or you can go to the Substack and download it. Quish said, Keith said, you're back with the good commentary. I'm trying out here. Girl, I'm trying. All right, let me see. I don't like this book, Maisha. What? You don't like this book? Excuse me? Generic Crystalline, I think that is how you say it, says, I've enjoyed our current series. Parable series is heavy. It's tough. If people who jump into the Parable series, they're brave. They're brave. Because if that was my first introduction to Butler, you all would not be having this conversation with me at all. Because I would head out. It is not my favorite. It is daunting to me. It's dense. It's an emotional roller coaster. I feel like Vivian Green sometimes. If y'all know Vivian Green, emotional roller coaster, that's what I feel like when I'm reading the Parable series. I feel like I'm on an emotional roller coaster that I just can't get off of, and I don't want to be on there. All right, let me pull the rest of the people up. Because Maisha has to explain herself as to why she hates this book. I pulled Maisha up on y'all. She's going to have to explain herself. But, okay, let's see. Hold on. Parable is my first Butler book. Haha, got me hooked. Oh, that's crazy. I'm enjoying the series, but it's a wild ride, and it's about to get wilder with Survivor. Parable was my first introduction to Butler. I haven't been able to pick up talent since I read Sower, and yeah. Valerie says my first introduction to Butler was Fledgling, and I was like, interesting. Yeah, and you know what's so funny about Fledgling? She said she wanted to write a sexy vampire novel that was not that was not kind of similar to the books of Anne Rice. Go figure. And so that apparently Fledgling became her sexy vampire novel. Okay. Parable series was my first intro to Butler and went to read Dawn, Fledgling, and Mirror. Okay. Thank y'all for sharing. All right, panel. Let's see, it's 6:07. I think we got enough people in here. What y'all think? Anybody can jump in so far.
I thought the book was good. The story was good. It was very different from her other stories, but the ending left a bad taste in my mouth.
Say more.
Because what was different between her and Doro? She's the completed version of him. All she did was take his plan and run with it, right? And she didn't change anything. She used the same playbook. Okay, we were enslaved, we were being used. I'm going to do the same thing and promote my people by enslaving the quote unquote mutes and victimizing those people. So it was just a continuation of the same playbook, and that really bothered me.
I think that's fair. And if y'all didn't read the post that's on the Substack entitled "Mary's Pattern, Doro's Legacy: Can Power That Begins in Control Ever Lead to Freedom?" You're gonna want to read that because it kind of goes hand in hand to what Maisha is saying. Like, yeah, you kind of still did the same thing, right? And when I was rereading it today, there was a line where Doro even tells Mary, "You all aren't building anything. You're literally taking from the mutes." And Mary's like, "We build ourselves," right? As if that's enough. And so, okay, I understand that. And so what about the ending didn't you like?
I just didn't like that, she was just going to continue to build her people up on the backs of the mutes. And I felt like it was just a continuation of enslaving a people.
Okay.
Because what's going to end up happening, even though she's like running this pattern, they are controlling other people's minds. They are taking away people's free will. And that I find very problematic, because if you take away people's free will, then you don't allow people to live the life that they were meant to live, or to learn the lessons in this life they're meant to learn. And she's just promoting her people as better than the rest. It's this whole idea about like evolution of the next being, or our next evolution. It just bothered me so much, and I didn't see any difference between what he did and Doro did, or what Europeans did in colonialism. I felt like they all were the same thing, and there was no new idea, no new way of thinking, no new way of being that was introduced, and that was problematic.
I can't argue with you there. I cannot argue. I thought you was going to say something else. Like, I can't argue with you there. It's so fascinating that I didn't come to this conclusion that you're at, and that I arrived at as I've been kind of trying to guide you all in a particular way, until like 2 years ago. And I had been studying this series and Butler's work since like 2013. And so I too was blinded, like my former colleagues were blinded by the power dynamics, by what they were able to do. And it wasn't until I reread Survivor for like the second time that I said, oh, wait a minute, hold on. They've been here this whole time, right? And you can lose sight of the mutes, which are the people who don't have telepathic abilities. You can lose sight of them because they are marginal characters. And just to like add this in, we're reading Survivor for that reason, right? We're reading Survivor because we need to see immediately what this telepathic world has done to people who don't have that same psionic privilege that the telepaths have. So yes, they are enslaving a group of people so that they can build on the backs of those people. But I think sometimes scholars um, they're so blinded by the power dynamic that, oh my God, we have these strong characters and we have these black superheroes in certain ways, where these strong black women protagonists, they get jaded by that, and they can't see that this text is kind of interrogating some of the same things that we are supposed to be standing up against and fighting against, right? And so I just wanted to say you got there faster than me. All right, and go
the
ahead.
thing that the thing that I thought about it was, it was interesting to me how she justified what she was doing, because in her mind, Doro kills. He kills. He absolutely kills. And she, her and the other uh telepaths basically have positioned themselves, or thinking about it is they're happier. The mutes are happier. So, I'm going to give them a life and give them this sense of purpose that they wouldn't have. And I
Mm,
also thought that that also reflected how the telepaths also felt about Mary within the pattern, because they found themselves um, absolutely submitting to whatever was happening with her with the pattern. And, at first we try, quote unquote, resisting, but then we're all in. Like, they set up their own, like, smaller, like they said, the people of the head of the house.
mhm,
So they're taking the same thing. So it's not just Mary. It's Mary. Then a telepath would become the head of the house, and they would do the same things out with, whatever it was they were building. And I think that that's interesting that they justified, as I like to say, the happy slave. Like,
mhm,
oh, so, these people who I need their business, their homes, their support, whatever it is, I have conditioned them, and they now see the beauty of what I'm doing.
mhm, mhm.
They want to
Yeah,
do it. They're happy.
right. It's a mental programming, right? And I
Mm.
don't know if y'all caught the line where the woman, I forget the woman's name, but she was beaten by another telepath, and one of the telepaths was saying like, "Oh, I can program him, or I can, yeah, they can be
Hmm.
No, I'm confusing the stories, but one of the telepaths tells another telepath, this person can be programmed to tolerate staying here, right? And so this is brain hacking. So when I started to ask you all, hey, start thinking about this in a way of AI or the pattern as a software. Yes, it is a collective consciousness, but they're brain hacking these people, right? They're stealing their consciousness, or they're programming them to believe that, hey, you're happy here. You're happy to be our slaves. And the image that always comes back to mind is, I don't know if y'all have ever watched The Walking Dead. And when they're trying to get around the zombies, they would kind of use the other dead zombies as like backpacks, or they'll put all their blood over them. Like, hey, you're conditioned to believe that you like this, and you can't see anything else. So these mutes are literally patternist backpacks, right? They're literally the people who have to take care of their offspring. They have to make sure the patternists are okay, and the patternists do manipulate their minds in political sectors, in banks, right? All of these things, and so it's a very dangerous game. And I think when I start class next week, I'm going to read the direct quote from Butler, who actually says that the patternists are horrible people and you would never want to live in their world, right? Yeah. And remember, y'all, remember, her quote was, she was making a lot of comments about Black America in this book. Remember, I floated that as a balloon last class. So some of the things we have to start to think about, like, what was she saying? What was she critiquing about Black America that we probably did not consider or would not consider? Okay. Anybody else?
Um, I was thinking a lot about how Butler writes her protagonists, especially like the women, um, and how they always have like this special ability, and
Mm-hmm.
like they're the first or the only of their kind. And in these two books that we've read, for the Pattern series, we see two different women who are the first or the only, and how when like your attempts to like find community, make community when you are the first or the only, but how that can either end up in like you controlling the community and not really being a part of the community. You're still outside of it. But sometimes you are able to create a community where you can kind of be in it, but still be like separate, but not like in a bad way. And some of my thoughts around that are like for books that we have not like read yet. But I just Mary, like I'm so interested in Mary because Butler writes these people who like can't stand to be around each other but need to be near each other, and so she has found a way where they can be with each other without totally hating each other. But the only way she was able to do that was by basically like enslaving all of these other people so that she can maintain her own power. And so like what does it mean to like be in community if you have to like destroy others to do so? Like, is it even worth it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that is kind of also, we can kind of see what you were saying at the end of the novel, right? When she tears the strength from them and she's like, 154 people never got up again, right? Like they're in this community, but she's like, they were the weakest. And it's like, yeah, these people have to be sacrificed for the greater good, quote unquote. But that comes at a price for that type of, I guess, experience or outcome comes as a result of trying to be protected by a system.
One of the things about Butler is that, her protagonists are black women. And
Mm-hmm,
there are always these impossible, crazy A scenarios, right?
mm-hmm,
And they are always having to do things that are challenging. Like they're always a complex. And so with this, especially in this second half of this, what I kept thinking was, um, she acted like a white man, because that's, like, but it would have been couched as a victory and heroic, and the people who were part of the pattern, the pattern, they would have been this, they would have been willingly sacrificed themselves. It had been all of this kind of like, this is how we build greatness, this is how we build, like this is the right thing. And I think that what she did, as the protagonist in this situation, Mary, being a black woman, is that it was glaring, like you said, like you're saying that you don't want to do this, but you are being exactly like what it is you say you hate. You are being you are using the word, you belong to me, you own me, I want you to be what I want you to be. You're doing all of these things. And it was, to me, it was kind of raw, because normally the person who's, because black women typically in these, especially in any kind of speculative fiction, we are the ones who like, it's gonna be all right, baby. Or we're the ones who are like in second or third step back, and then we're there to serve or support or whatever else. But for her to be, this leader, I don't know, it made me think like, I know that this when I first read this a long, long, long time ago, it made me feel like, now that's power.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Like black women, like these black women
mm-hmm,
are taking power. Like they're forcing this, they're making these things happen.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just something I've been thinking about for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you first see it, and I think someone wrote this in the chat, like
Mhm.
Butler is like, she's a demonstrator, right? She shows
Yeah.
you about power. She's not theorizing. And I've said over and over that that is what originally drew me to her work, that I didn't have to theorize about power. We saw power on the page. And
Yeah.
it was so compelling and it was so refreshing not to get necessarily another struggle narrative in the way that I'm used to reading struggle narratives, or not to get another narrative where a Black woman is defeated. So I was like, yes. And then as I continue to read and continue to mature and return to these works, I'm like, I missed so much because I was so blinded by, the glitz and glam of the power that Butler was showing. And so I think, and to your point, and also to what Butler said in the text, that Mary was a complete version of Doro. Complete, right? She was not just what he should have been anymore. Inside of the narrative, it says she was complete. And when she consumes Doro into the pattern, he notices too, like, oh yeah, this girl is stronger than me, right? She doesn't have the blind spots that I have because she can absorb energy from everyone she's connected to. I think by the end of the narrative, there were 1,584 people. They've grown that community to that many people in 2 years. So of course, she's absolute power. And if you all remember earlier in the text, even if someone thinks something, before they have to think it, before they can do it, she can take them out with a thought. Like she inflicted that Charlie horse on that man's leg, right? Constricted his muscles with a thought, right? So Mary is absolute power. And again, it was so, I think I was just drunk off of it, if I'm honest. But then this read and a few reads before this, I was like, nah, this feels kind of sticky and icky, and I'm not sure that I love it anymore. Okay.
I was gonna say it's interesting. I'm sitting here thinking about the characters that Butler writing Black women who are outside the group in some capacity, right? These Black women who gain power in her books, but they are outside the group, and the only connection that they have are to the people that they're with romantically. Because I was thinking, I'm like, do they have friends? Are there other dynamics going on with other people? And it really isn't. It's just about, the only dynamic you see is about the power she has over other people. In this book, as well as in Wild Seed, as well as in the other Kindred that we read, and just thinking even of Lilith from the other series. So I'm just like, I find it very interesting that she writes these characters who, I mean, you would identify with them, and if you read the book for the first time, but when you reread it again, you find things that you don't identify with, and that is a little bit problematic, in my opinion.
I think that one thing that I forgot to mention, and I'm glad you restated it. I know in Black and Brown communities, we all know that community is important. But Butler's work kind of shows you what happens if you don't have community, and what happens if you have to build the community around yourself, how you respond and how you act. So Anyanwu, once she left Africa, she didn't have community. She had to build this community around herself. She was wearing the body of a white planter. She was doing all the things on a smaller scale that Dora was doing. Mary, no community because they can't tolerate each other. She builds the pattern around herself, right? So she is the mental queen bee. When we get to Elena tomorrow, next week, we're going to see the same thing, and we're going to have to ask the same question. Clay's Arc and Pattern Master have male protagonists. So those books will read a little bit differently than the first 3 books of this series do. But we do have, I think Butler is ultimately making some type of commentary or critiquing something about community building. What happens to the person who's at the center of it or at the top of the hierarchy?
That makes sense.
All right. Anybody else want to tap in? Let me see what we in the chat. Lactose Intolerant says, I feel like Butler was working through her own outsider status. And that's true. She was. Her notes reveal some of that. So you're spot on with that. The patterns. The pattern. So he's. You must be responding to somebody. Sorry. Okay, y'all ready to jump in these questions? First, let me hear about what did y'all think about the writing? And this isn't on the page or on the Substack, but what did y'all think about the writing once Mary decided to actually fight Doro? Like this, it did speed up, but I felt that Butler towards the end of this book, the writing just got way better for me. Did y'all feel that way, or y'all was just locked in the whole time?
Those last like 15, 20 pages, my heart was pounding the entire time. Like literally, we were trying to figure out like dinner plans, and I just was like, can you please leave me alone for like the next 20 minutes? Like, I need to finish this. Like, do not interrupt me.
Yeah.
Because it was just so intense.
The build up was chef's kiss. All right. Anybody else?
So I would have to agree. I'm going to be honest. I've read so many of Octavia Butler's works, exogenesis theories and all that, but I had to stop because Dora was so, after Wild Seed, Dora was so much of an antagonist that I stopped reading the rest of the Patternist series after 100 pages of Mind of My Mind because I thought nobody was ever going to defeat Dora. So I stopped reading it and just started reading all her other works.
Okay.
So during this class, when I went back and I finished reading the book, I was, head over heels. Yes. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Somebody finally got him.
And his daughter got him.
Yes.
And y'all know, like, Anyanwu even, or she's Emma in this book, she even says, like, you've always underestimated women, young girls. You've always underestimated them because you all remember Doro was so confident. She can't defeat me. I already know her. I read her. Like, we don't have to worry about her. And Emma was like, nah, that's been your weakness. You've always underestimated us. And there you go. The one that he underestimated the most literally defeated him.
You know what also shocked me was when in the book when she basically says that she chained and I can't pronounce the name. When she changed Emma. When she said I have her chained, like she's not in the pattern like the rest of them, but I have marked her as mine. I've marked her as mine. I have and the fact that she could listen in on or whatever the conversation that Emma had with Dora. I was just like, that's why Emma was like, you don't know. You saying you can do this, but are you sure? Because she's got way more going on than what you think. Just the fact, and she was aware, and she was aware of the fact, because it wasn't like Mary asked her and said, "Hey, I want to protect you, so I want to put this mark on you." Like, it wasn't like that. She just did it.
Branded her.
Yeah, branded her. Right, absolutely.
Yawu or Emma and Mary, it's a whole sermon right there between them.
Yes.
Because it's kind of like Wild Seed, the book before. This is how this woman handled this man. And then Mind of My Mind and Mary, this is how this woman handled this man. Yes. So, and Yawu just went along with it. Let her keep coming to his bed. She wanted the you know what. But the last time when Doro came to Mary's bed, Mary kicked him out. I'm not going to get hypnotized by the you know what. I'm not going to get hypnotized. I don't care how good it is.
Yeah, by that bonding agent. Yeah. What did y'all think about Emma just deciding to just go on to glory?
Even though I have read this book like at least three times before, every time I get to that part, it just, I don't know. I'm like, why would you don't have to do that. But it made sense given that she kept going with Doro, and she basically has said 1,000,000 times he's always going to be my husband and all of this kind of stuff. So it it makes sense, but I was hoping that she would have went past that thinking.
Yeah. And one, okay, you want to go?
On the surface level, thinking modern thinking, Emma was very male centered. She was
Mm,
very Doro centered.
mm.
So she was kind of thinking these new telepaths, they have the abilities that I don't have. They can control me. These YNs are out of control, and I'm out.
Not the
I'm not staying here with these YNs. I'm out.
They can control her. Yeah, they can. Absolutely. And remember, y'all, remember when I said you met a telepath in Wild Seed, right? When she had that encounter with Leo? Like you saw the budding of it, right? The hinting at it. Now you see them in full manifestation. You see them in full power, and they are the superhuman race of the world. If someone can read your thoughts, they can defeat you. They can, because they know your every move. They know your move before you know it, because they can read your thoughts, right? And so, of course, Anyanwu, I saw someone say in the chat says she came from a different time. Yeah, but she also can't exist. She cannot compete and exist in the world that does not favor her power, right? She was in power in a way in Wild Seed because she could shapeshift. She can take on the body of, the white successful planter and move around the world with some type of privilege. That privilege goes to Hades when you have a new power emerging, and they have a mental power. This is mental warfare. Well, we're not in a warfare, but you're seeing that it could turn into mental warfare. It is warfare if we're considering the mutes in the book, those who don't have telepathic abilities, and we will see just how it felt and how it landed on them when we get to Survivor. So yeah, I think that one reason why scholars don't touch Mind in My Mind is one of those reasons right there about Emma just shutting herself off, because for the longest, scholarship has maintained that Black women don't have the privilege to just unalive themselves. Or it's like a labor. You just got to keep on living. You don't have the privilege to do that. And remember, Butler is writing this. This book was published in 1977. 1977 text. So she's writing right into the Black women's renaissance of the 1980s, where majority of the Black women authors that we read today kind of came into prominence. And so if you have this text coming into the 80s, into the renaissance of the Black women writers, and you have this ancestral figure just deciding to stop living, a lot of scholars didn't touch that. And so I think I found less than a handful of peer-reviewed articles on this text, though it does not focus on, the book is not about Anyanwu, but it is still kind of, because she's still there. No one is willing to address that point. Like, no, that is agency now. Yeah, I remember a lot of folks, well, not a lot of folks, but a lot of folks in the chat, not on the panel, were trying to take up for Anyanwu. Like, no, she's a victim in a lot of ways. But we see that she could have turned herself off in Wild Seed if she wanted to. But she decides, hey, my life partner is gone, right? I was disappointed the first time that I read it, and I just said, wow, okay, I guess you have nothing else to live for. But yeah.
I'm not sure she turned herself off because of Doro's death. I think it was more that Doro played a role in allowing her to live her life freely where she was. He was the cushion between what he was building and the other children that they had together and her independence. When he died, she knew that she was going to become part of that pattern and completely controlled by Mary. And she's already a very old woman who is used to having free will in her own power. So she would not have that if she had continued to live in Mary's world. She would have lost that, and she knew that. So I think it more so she turned herself off because of those reasons rather than, oh, my husband died. Because I don't think that for her any of her husbands were the center of her existence. I think it was a part of her culture and everything like that in some aspects, but I think it was more so he played the buffer and that was gone.
But the only reason I'm going to push against what you're saying is because of her belief in what he was building, right? This was her. So the other husbands that she had previously, they did not have longevity of life. They were all going to die, and so of course she's like, okay, you all are temporary. Doro was the only person who was not temporary. He was her lover, and I think Butler went through. She was very clear that Anyanwu, once we got to the second half, stayed in youthful form for a very, very, very long time, right? When Doro was around. So they were lovers. And so while I can see your point, I think the only reason why I would push back is because, yes, he was a buffer, but he was also her longtime partner. And they had lived, by the time we started this text, it was 250 years with each other, right? And so she could have died of a broken heart. That's not unusual for people to do. To your point, she would not have had the power in the agency, but Mary wasn't trying to touch her.
Yes and no, but she knew, she knew that she was a part of that pattern. Like at that one scene when she went into Emma's memories to get that message from Doro, right? Um
Right.
it doesn't talk about how that may have made Emma feel, but I'm sure as a woman who's lived hundreds of years and has had exerted her power over other people, and now you have one of your descendants able to just go in your brain and take something out. I mean, and losing Doro, that I wouldn't want to exist anymore either. I'm like, I don't want to be a part of anything that they're building, because she also knew that Mary was a more complete version of Doro. It was going to be a different ball game after Doro left.
Right.
I
I
just
don't. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to slip up here and say, so sorry. Hey y'all, good evening. How y'all doing? This is Tachi. I'm a little bit under the weather and I've been quiet so far because I wanted to talk about this specifically. Disgusted. Number one, I'm disgusted that she didn't stand on business to go ahead and pass away in Wild Seed, but she gonna pass away right now because Doro's dead. Yuck. Throwing up. Throwing up. Immediate no. Garbage. Don't like her. Never did.
Never did. You never did.
Never did. Don't like her. Disgusting. Okay, you was doing all that yin yang. I'ma do this, I'ma do that. How you treating the children is wrong. Rah 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 rah. When it came time to die, you ain't want to die. Now he going. Oh my God. Oh my God, he dead, and you won't fall down and die. Disgusting. Disgusting.
Okay. Okay.
I would like to think Emma had a little bit of self-preservation. It was some self-preservation because in that last conversation with Doro, they were having kind of a moment, and he was like, "Oh, well, this is one of your descendants," and she was like, "Oh, well, this is your daughter." But she also felt a little bit disgust that Mary had kind of marked her, and that was like, "Oh, this is somebody in my pattern." So I don't think it was eventually because of Doro. I think it was because it brought a flashback back to where she was building a life for herself before Doro came and she had her own son. And then Doro was like, he brought his telepath in. And then that telepath had killed her children. And I think she was like, this is dangerous. These telepaths are dangerous. I think that eventually is what it was. And not that, oh, Doro's dead. She really saw the dangerousness of these telepaths.
They've always been dangerous, though. They've always been dangerous. This is not new. This is not new information. She knew that even before when she drew the first five together, she was privy on it. There's nothing that she didn't do that, Doro wasn't telling Anyan back, like, trying to monitor and keep tabs on stuff like that. I do not believe for a moment that she came in and was just like, oh no, everything's fine until boom, Mary gets here and she starts building a tribe and all of a sudden it's not dangerous. It's been dangerous. They've been playing this dangerous game. So I don't understand. I get it. Doro's not the be all end all anymore. So you're a little afraid of girl, but you could reason with her. You could try to reason with her like you tried to reason with Doro, if that's the case. I just feel like it's just disgusting. You could appeal to her.
I think
She
the
was too
difference
male
though,
centered to reason with Mary. She was too male centered.
Yeah,
It's
and that's why,
reasonable.
and I'm disgusted. But throwing up. I don't like her. Glad she going. She should have been going the first book.
Oh Lord.
I also feel like though it would have been hard for Anyanwu to reason with Mary because she didn't have a personal relationship with Mary the way that she did with Doro. Like
She
her and
couldn't
Mary.
try.
I mean, sure, she didn't try. You couldn't say that she didn't try, but like at the end of the day, the relationship didn't exist. So, and she was afraid of her from jump when she first created the pattern. So, I think that she always thought that like Doro would be the protector. I think someone else said that earlier too. So, like when Doro left, she just kind of was like, "Well, I'm not dealing with this because look at the way that they're expanding, and now that Doro is gone, Mary's gonna go unchecked.
So,
Like she could go much faster."
so in a way, I feel like I still think it's because of Doro, but I can also say all of this is because of Doro. It could have been the love aspect. It could have been, oh, she's not gonna have his protection. That's still kind of dying because of Doro, right? My protector isn't here. I might as well go on now too. Not even try to reason with them. Someone said she's why try to reason with a tyrant? I understand that. Someone said that in the chat. I just was like, you didn't even try.
Doro was the ultimate tyrant. So if y'all talking about why reason was it said, that's crazy. That's
Well,
crazy
I
work.
feel like
Is it because she's a girl? Like that's crazy work. I'm just saying.
Veronica,
because she's the complete version of what Doro should have been. So we already know, based on this book, that in the next couple of books, it's going to get worse because of the power she wields versus what Doro had. It's a complete aversion.
You can still try to reason with her the way that you all but threw yourself at
I
Doro
feel like
and
there's
try
a
to
big
appeal
reason
to
she
her.
didn't reason with her. Like the Emma that we had in Wild Seed is a very different person from the Anyanwu that we had in the Emma that we had in Mind of My Mind is a very different person from the Anyanwu that we had in most of Wild Seed. I
okay.
think that in the point I don't think it was just one moment, but I do think that moment that was culminating up to her threatening to kill herself sorry, I shouldn't have said that. In the first book, I'm mixing them. But at that moment, I do think that a big part of her died over that period, and we lost a lot of who she was. And I feel like the Emma that we saw in Mind of My Mind was, as you guys are saying, very Doro-centric. She was a different character. And I don't know if it's just because she wasn't given or written a lot more about her other than what was going on with Doro, or because that's really what was going on. I think the only glimpse into like her doing something for herself that we have in this book is her writing. But other than that, it felt like she was a shell of who she was in the previous book. So to me, it did make a lot of sense. I honestly didn't even think twice when they said that she had decided to X herself, because I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like this whole book, she basically has been living for Dora for hundreds of years at this point. So
Hence why
Completely
continue?
agree with
Why
that.
didn't you off yourself then? If you saw that that was the direction, why didn't you do it sooner then? If you saw that you're losing yourself, in that the fact that you would only be living the right books, but you'd be answering to this man all your life, something that you did not want to do, you tried to run away so you wouldn't do. You had I don't know. I feel like there was multiple stages where she could have either offed herself or try to find a way out at that point. And so I feel like I don't know. That's just
Think that Veronica brought up a really good point because in this book she was completely different, and if we look to the end of Wall Seed when she made that choice to continue to go on, she gave up a large part of herself. So it would make sense we get a different version of her in this book, and she would decide to turn herself off when Doro left, but because again he was the buffer, but also because she had committed to continue to live for him at that point from the last book.
So are we agreeing that it could have also been love?
Yes.
Like I just wanted us to get to this
and
point,
right.
right? Because we
I
can do
don't
a
know.
lot of mental gymnastics. We can do a lot of mental gymnastics to kind of like, oh no, she was old, give her all of these reasons, but the fact was she was already old. She was old.
Right.
And now, but it's to be clear, she believed in the vision. The vision also became part of her. And so when you come into into agreement, right, with Doro, which she did, she was part of the lineage. She was helping the dream continue, the empire progress. She was there, right? She was one of the founding members in a way, right? And now that dream is gone, it has been completed by someone else. So she was around for the dream as long as it was completed and controlled by him. That's it. Now
I
that he's
think that
gone,
was my original objection.
okay.
I was upset that it wasn't Anyawu. I was upset that it wasn't Emma. That's why I stopped reading the book and started reading some of Octavia's other things. And I got upset with Octavia because I thought that Anyawu was supposed to stop Doro.
Mm,
And then ended up, that's not what happened.
mm-hmm. I'm going to say
I was
this.
expecting Emma to do it.
Since we're going to get to this series later on, Butler's notes, she says that Lauren from the Parable series is what Anyanwu would have been had she succeeded. So I just wanted y'all to tuck that away. All right, tuck that away. Okay. Anybody else?
You can't do that. You can't just throw something out like that. That's just wrong. For those of us who've read everything she's ever written, that's just
I've
wrong.
read it.
I mean, put in your pocket. We're going to get there later. Just put in your
That's just
pocket,
wrong.
okay? But she did say that. That's what her note said.
Let's read all of them.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there. Okay. Anybody else? Y'all want to? I look like we're gonna jump into the questions then. All right, let's go with the body and power. The body as power and precarity. As always, y'all. I'm reading from the Substack. We're probably gonna get through 2 questions tonight. All right, so it says historically, Black bodies have been positioned as disposable, subject to violence and erasure. And Mind of My Mind complicates this narrative by shifting the source of destruction to within the telepathic community itself. For instance, Doro views Mary as disposable, contemplating her elimination if she becomes too powerful. Yet Mary subverts this by turning bodies through mental manipulation into something she can control or destroy at will. How does Butler's depiction of the destructible body speak to the broader anxieties about power, autonomy, and communal violence? How does Butler's depiction of the destructible body speak to broader anxieties about power, autonomy, and communal violence?
Okay, I have thoughts. Sorry not to laugh because I'm not gonna even talk about that hate, the man I hate. Listen, when I was reading this, especially the end, what I found most fascinating was, I think I mentioned on last class, like the cannibalization that was happening, and like the ways in which the like Mary and the first family, or particularly Mary, she needed these powerful beings or these people to continue to exist in order for her to stay in power. And to that question, I think that, especially with destruction, it felt like what Octavia was trying to get at is that, how do I put this without getting kicked out? It felt like, sorry, y'all. I can't think of what I'm trying to say. I just blanked on it. It's been a long day at work. Okay, really quickly. It felt like Octavia was trying to say that for Black people, because Mary is Black, she might be light skinned, but she's Black. We also have the same level of cannibalization that we see in like the imperialism and the hegemony from last week. And even in order for us to be successful, or for the Marys of the world or the first families of the world to be successful, they have to go through people. They have to use things. And these bodies are stronger than ours. Like, they are technically more powerful. They can float, they can read our minds, they can do whatever. And they are still weak in the grand scheme of things. And it's almost like, what, to what end? Like, superpowers don't hold up against an even more powerful being. And as a Black person, we tell ourselves that we're excellent, but we can't even hold up against white supremacy. We live long, but our telomeres are short. We prosper, we're resilient, but at what cost? And I think about that, and like, destruction will always take, and it has to take. Power needs to feed. And I wonder if Octavia was trying to call that out in the way she had this first family structure, because they were diverse. Mary is Black, and yes, she's emulating what has been done for centuries. It took me a while, but I got there right on time. Amen.
I want to piggyback off of that because it was exactly what I was going to say. See, we always locked in. We here. I wanted to also say that, like, yeah, when you're using the same structure, even when you're Black, coming into white spaces and now saying that you're going to take over everything and you're going to do it right and you're going to have your own lineage kind of prosper and bring other seats at the table. If you're using the same machine, it doesn't matter if you put new seats in it, right? So even thinking about how she was trying to call back the latents and how Doro had discarded like the scene where they pulled like the 3 children out and like the one baby was dead, decaying, had maggots all over it. That to me was more of, you know, the depiction of discarding than, you know, and being disposable than, you know, Mary. Like, okay, she was being belligerent, she could be, you know, she wasn't being a good tool, so whatever, I can discard her. But it was just the disregard of how the latents lived, and he didn't care about them at all. And you see how they were tearing themselves down. It kind of, you know, the cocaine 80s were the same, and it was just, you know, everybody wanted to have power. You had the runners, you had the drug dealers, you know, I'm getting my seat at the table, I'm putting my family on, but I'm pushing this to my community. And it's kind of like, okay, what good is that power? Again, if you're using the same machine, it doesn't matter if you put new seats on it. It just doesn't. So that to me was a more jarring scene when they went in there, Rachel and her student, and they went and got them babies out. That was crazy.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, that's probably why I didn't like the book, because here we have a new character who's even more powerful than Doro, and she is just going to pretty much continue what he's doing, but she's going to victimize another group the way her group was victimized by him, and use the same playbook, going back to the same system, the same machine, on another group of people, and not use her experience or their experience collectively to build something that looks different, that doesn't take away from other people, but can actually build them up and maybe help everybody. And I think that's why at the end, I just couldn't, I didn't like the book.
So let me ask you, let me rephrase this question, because it just came up as you two were speaking. What bodies are disposable in this text? Whose body is disposable?
The mutes.
Okay, the mutes. Okay. Anybody else's body?
It
And even
depends.
some of the latents.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm saying. It depends on who was doing the discarding.
The latents were absolutely easily to discard to Dora.
Both groups.
Yeah, it literally depended on who was doing the discarding. It didn't matter. Anybody could get it when it came to Dora. Anybody could get it when it came to Mary, damn near. So
So anybody that was not willing to, or not conform to the plan, but willing to be beneficial, anybody that's not beneficial to the bottom line is disposable.
it's corporate America. It's capitalism. There's something there. You have to serve a purpose in order to stay. Yeah.
I think the underlining trend is, even with Mary, it's not a charity thing. It's something that she needed. So it's not like she was doing it out of the abundance of her heart. And we found that when Doro said, "You're not going to do this anymore. You're not allowed to," and then she had withdrawal. It's not like she was doing it for charity. It's something that she was feeding off of them.
And we have to have that same energy that we have for Doro, who was snatching bodies.
And
wild.
do. Hello.
Wait a minute. And back on my hating. I'm here. Yeah.
Maxwell, welcome to the panel. What you got?
I am at the gym and I literally walked off somewhere private because I had to say this when you asked this question. Even the people who are fully indoctrinated into the pattern, even people who are completely there, were discarded and thrown away in the fight against Doro. Like 100, what was it, 150? Yeah, and so mutes, latents, and even people who have done everything that Mary wants, everyone's on the chopping block as long as it affects Mary's bottom line, as long as she can stay alive. Not saying that Doro would be any better, but it's like they're all subservient. Even the ones who follow the rules, even the ones who do everything they're supposed to, get indoctrinated, everything. Anyone's up for grabs. If Mary can use you to survive, she will, and she did. That said, let's go, Mary. Rip Doro. That's it. Bye.
Not too much. Not too much resting. Not too much resting for him.
What I was gonna add is there's a difference between Mary and Doro, and that even though Doro is a disgusting character and deserved his death, he didn't disturb other communities. Mary is going to be disturbing other communities because she needs other communities to build her community. They can't even stand to be around their own children. They have to take over mutes in order to survive. Doro didn't bother other people from advancing and building their civilizations. He incorporated himself into their systems. So there's a difference between the two. I know we're team hate Doro, and I'm there too, but Mary is scary. She's a scary individual.
Wait, now hold on. What do we mean by he didn't disturb other communities? I want that written out for me like I'm 5, so because I can see so many ways that he did disturb other communities.
He didn't disturb other communities in the sense that he didn't go and take over everyone's free will the way Mary is going to do.
But he didn't have the power to, not yet.
Right, but he also dispersed his latents and his other actives way before Mary came along, and they were doing that for him.
Mm-hmm. Yes, now let me backtrack a little bit. He did disturb communities in which he stole people from and inserted his projects in, but it wasn't everybody. Mary's going to disturb all people without ability, and that's the scary part. I'm not saying that Doro is any better. I'm just saying she's just a little bit more scarier because everyone is going to be affected by her. Everybody wasn't affected by Doro all at once. And that's the difference.
I see what you're saying here because that's what it alludes to politically and how they were taking over schools, they were taking over politicians, and the fact that they couldn't raise their own children. You know, how many of us, mine are running around right now. I wish somebody could take care of mine right now. If I could mind control somebody to watch my kids right now so I could do this live, I would do that. Yeah. But we are not available to do that. And in that conversation between Doro and Emma, they were talking about, oh, they just have this town. And he was like, no, they're talking about Washington. So maybe that kind of sets up Survivor, and where it's so much that their latents are like, where can we go to get away from these telepaths and have actual government? Because they're starting to take over the local government.
So let me say this really quickly. I am going to have to do a lot of hand holding on the Substack to kind of prime Survivor, because I am throwing you into another world. You are going to hear about the Mutes' perspective, but there's a lot of information you won't know. And so I'm going to be sharing it both on the free side and the paid side. Because there's just a lot of information that I would have to share for this book. And so make sure you all are tuned into the Substack starting Friday, because that's when I'll start with the class general conversations to help bridge the gap. Because the reason why I understand what Maisha's saying, like they're so scary, one, they are, but two, if someone controls your mind, they control you, right? Doro can snatch your body, right? But he cannot control your mind until he pushes your body out of your body and pushes your spirit out of your body, and then it's no longer you. And so I do understand that the only autonomy we all really have are our private thoughts, right?
Okay. Oh, I have a thought. Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought because I'm ready. I'm primed. This is capitalism. Let's lock in, sisters and men if they're there. All right, buckle in. Give me 3 minutes. Okay, so Oliver Cromwell Cox wrote Caste, Class, and Race, 1947, 1946, and he talks about capitalism. Capitalism is the son or daughter of imperialism. So we started with Doro, the imperialist, right? And he beget Mary, the capitalist, because capitalism does require everything about you except for your mind. And it's getting to the point that it requires your mind. Not jumping ahead, but looking at the next question on the pattern as software, literally, capitalism requires your time, your energy. You cannot do anything. You are not expected to do anything. And from the position of politics, that's also tied in. There's a quote in his book that he says, like, capitalism and democracy they're antithetical to each other. They cannot exist. You can't have both. You can't have a democratic state and you cannot have capitalism, because democracy is in the hands of the rich, the powerful, the ones who hold, and those are like the lobbyists, right? And so if we think of Mary and the latents that she needs and the mutes that she uses, she is a capitalist state. She is the son or daughter of imperialism, which is like, go out and prosper and colonize these lands. She's just the 2.0 version. And then when we think about her like network functions, we are all linked together under capitalism. Like that tweet says, everybody's a victim of capitalism except for my haters, they're broke. We are all victims of capitalism because it needs bodies. It churns through. It is a destructive force, and it requires you to lose your autonomy to the highest good, which is an unearthly, unnatural thing, because capitalism says things continue to grow forever, and that's not natural. She is not natural. Mary is not natural. She has to eat. She has to feed, and she needs to subvert. And she, like Maisha said, she's not doing it out of the kindness of her heart. She's doing it because she needs to do it. She's doing it because power begets power, and she is the most powerful. She said, I feel the proprietary piece of it. Hello, capitalism also doesn't like innovation or those who step out. You don't get new and exciting things. You get the same old same, or you get versions of the same old same in order to take away market share. And then we think of her as a technology, which, as someone who works for a tech company, let me just say this is terrible. From the AI perspective, the reason that capitalism is pushing, are these companies are pushing AI, this interface, this linking of, this dumbing down, is because it gets them closer to their end goal, which is continued profit, which is continued power, which is continued success. It's not for the benefit of man. You're not seeing any real good come from AI. You're not seeing really any good come from using or being on the pattern. You're on a leash. So the more you use AI, the more she links people. Like, they are all connected, but they're connected to their detriment. They will never be free. Yeah. And so, last thing, I know I said 3 minutes, but give me 2 more. And when we talk about that collective piece of like, your only piece of freedom is your mind, actually kind of not really, because I don't know what comes in the book, but I reckon if y'all are connected on a pattern, don't tell me. I'm pretty sure through mutation, because evolution works this way, there will come a time in the future where they can, they can think to each other, but they'll be able to see into each other's thoughts or have a feeling of what is happening. And that's really the last bit. Hence, hello, Elon's Neuralink. So all of this, like, if we take a step back, Doro is imperialism. He is the father, and Mary is capitalism, and she's the daughter. And we are seeing what happens when you have to bend to a system that needs to feed, and you lose yourself in that system. That's it. I'm done.
Let us, because I do want to get to this second question, I'm going to say something to build off of what she said, and then we're going to go to this Mary as technology question, because I'm very interested in it. I was listening to a podcast recently. We have this thought, and everyone's saying, hey, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And I used to think that too, until I started really thinking about it. And the podcast host was like, no, we don't, right? Because of capitalism, the ultra wealthy or people who can just afford certain things, they use money to buy back their time. So if you are an underprivileged person, or you don't have enough money to make ends meet, you're going to have to do more labor than the other person who is wealthy, right? They have the nannies, they have the chefs, they have people writing their schedules for them. All of these things, all they have to do is get up and show up, right? And so the ultra wealthy are able to buy back their time through outsourcing the tasks that take up a lot of mental space or maybe even just physical time. And so that is a thing. And so when we're thinking about the patternists, they are the ultra wealthy, right? They have bought back the time. They don't have to do it. Mary can think a thought and they can implant a thought and it is done, right? And I don't know if y'all picked up on the point of the book where when she comes back into the house after speaking with Doro, Butler writes that Carl was implanting thoughts in the mind of, I think, of a politician or somebody, because he wanted something from them. He needed him to make a certain decision, right? And so he's programming these people to just be their slaves. And so they're able to get the other people to do the work for them and still throw the rock and hide their hand. That's what I'm trying to say. But I understand what everybody is saying. But I want to get to this next question. Okay, Mary as technology, the pattern as software. That's probably going to be all we're going to be able to talk about. So it says, throughout Mind in My Mind, Mary's telepathic network functions much like an advanced brain-computer interface, which we call BCI, linking individuals into a vast interconnected system. Once someone is drawn into the pattern, their thoughts, emotions, and even actions become subject to Mary's influence, similar to how modern neural implants or artificial intelligence systems create networks of shared processing and control. If we think of Mary as technology and the pattern as a form of software, what are the implications of this comparison? And the second question I have, which you all can answer if you want, how does Butler's depiction of the pattern anticipate real-world conversations about data privacy, collective consciousness, and the ethical dilemmas of merging human minds with technology? So the first question, if we think of Mary as technology and the pattern as a form of software, what are the implications of this comparison? And or what are the real world? Let's have some real world conversations about data privacy, collective consciousness, and the ethical dilemmas of merging human minds with technology. Because in a way, I do see humans becoming cyborgs. In a way, we're tethered to our phones. We're tethered to technology, right?
I feel like if I look at it, how we're talking about AI now and how I've been reading about it, the bigger computer is trying to learn us as people. And once it learns us and tries to adapt to think the way we do, we're going to rely on, like, the computer is going to be smarter than the brain and not the brain smarter than the computer. And so, which is the ultimate goal to programming. I think that how people do this, or how Mary posited it, is certainly how it's marketed to us, right? So AI is marketed to us as though we're evening the playing field with the superpowers that be, right? They get to outsource stuff and we get to ask GPT. We get to ask a virtual AI assistant to do something. We get to outsource. So it's good, right? You should want it, right? You should feed into it. You should buy it because it's leveling the playing field, and it frees you up for so many things, so you can become like XYZ, right? And so that's how it's marketed, that's how it's sold. And the inner workings of what we're able to do, our brains, and how to synthesize and create this is so remarkable for all the geeks out there that we're just like, yes, we should totally be like, this is how we advance. This is how we do that. And to the lay people who don't understand the tech behind it, it's like, oh, well, this is just going to make my life so much easier. And that's the latch. That's how we get tethered. And now it's going to continue learning and continue prompting and continue to use your brain to then become your brain and then ultimately tell you what to think. And then whoever's controlling the gears, whoever the wizard is behind the the mass, well, they get to tell you what to think, how to think, and what's true and what's not true. We're seeing that now. Is some of us who still read or still follow international news. When you go on Google now, there's the AI, the Meta AI that's on top of your Google. Half the time, the shit's wrong. But people are just like, well, they don't know. How would they know? And then they take it as fact. So no one's fact checking Google when Google used to be, that we've trusted Google so much, and that now we're relying on it. So then, Elon, or what is it, Zuckerberg, can put Meta AI on there, and we take it as fact. So the same thing is like the implantation of thought. Yeah. So I feel like how she wrote everything is very, very akin to how we're being marketed and tethered now. And it's eerie.
I would say that Butler again demonstrates that this is why people think that she's a prophet, or people talk to her in that kind of, or think about it in that kind of way, because somebody, I work in tech and mark from on the marketing side of technology, and AI is a big thing for what I do on a regular basis, and so the the pattern that she talks about is like, in a large sense, is exactly technology. It's not like, think about Mary as technology. It is exactly that process. It's exactly the gathering of information. So, like as an example, you got the large modeling features, and then you have all of this data. So basically, they just for the last 50, 30 years or whatever, all this data that has been collected has been put into a reservoir, and now they're saying there's a computer that can sort through all of this data and give you an answer. Right? That's basically what it is. But that's where it is right now. But what they're also doing is saying, okay, now we've got this data, we presented you this information. Now, human, tell me, is this right? Make it better, And so now what happens is, if you are on the other end, if you're the worker, if you're trying to use one of these AI tools or whatever else, you are like a mute, because now you are feeding or doing the bidding of what the AI is asking you to do, because you're making it better.
Yeah.
You are feeding off of it. So I think that from an ethical standpoint, that's been gone a while, because they're like, if just not to get political or anything else, but you got somebody who is a supposed citizen who is running gunshot through all of our personal data, and they're making decisions about who goes, who stays, who does this, without any kind of context of information. They're putting it into some algorithm and shooting that back out. And then that's what's happening, and that's feeding that. So I think that there are no barriers around it. That's why OpenAI had major issues, and they had all the fallout internally was around the efficacy of what it is that it could be done. I'm on both sides. I can see the advantages. I see that it's a great thing or whatever else, but it could definitely be just the way that the way that we talk about how Mary is using the pattern and what she's doing and how she's acting or whatever she's turned into Doro, fully realize that's the danger. That's the danger.
And one thing
I
that
would like to add in. I'm sorry. I would like to add in about our thought process, and about how our spending processes, just like how we go into the store and we buy certain things, like say we go to Walmart and we buy certain products, they sell that information, and so that we get certain ads based off of what we bought before. Those ads, say we're scrolling on Facebook, the ads based off of what we bought at Walmart, Target, wherever, they're based off of what we recently bought. So that's going into our thoughts, and it's bringing our thoughts back to us, and that's kind of like how Mary's matrix is, and how we are spending based off of what we use on debit cards.
One thing that I was going to add is the fact that the pattern itself updates itself. It's an intelligent thing, right? It's intelligent software. I started to arrive at this conclusion when Mary, I think it was Jesse, first came and tried to attack Mary, right? And there's this line when Butler's like, "Oh, she didn't have time to think." Like he jerked or flew at her through the pattern. That was the first time it ever happened. We never see that happen again. But then Butler's like, "Oh, she it happened so fast, and then she did this thing, and basically she started to consume him." And that was that was her being able through the pattern to kind of assess a data breach, right? A breach in the software. She's able to pinpoint it and correct it, right? And it was a quick correction. And there are other moments, if we just continue to read through an AI lens or a software lens or a technology lens, that you will see the pattern is continuously updating itself. Every experience, there's some type of update, and we never see the breakdown of it again because it is this living thing. Now, let me say this. This is the last time you're going to see Mary. One thing I want us to remember is that when we get to pattern master, the title itself should tell you that there's a pattern master. And Mary, in this case, is the pattern master, but we're not going to see her again. Okay. And so as we continue through the series, I want the pattern master to be in the back of your mind, because my idea or thought is that this is a living thing. This is an organism. This is software. This is something that is going to be considered super AI, if we want to use that term. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was saying in the book, Doro kind of says that before he dies. He goes, "Oh, you're not a parasite. You're," I think he said, symbiotic. And she had learned in that moment when she was fighting him, like she was dying, but she quickly learned from what he was doing to kill her to reverse it back on him in order to destroy Doro. So the pattern is constantly learning very quickly to keep going, right? Because it has to survive by using the energy of all the people who are part of the pattern. So it kind of like says that in a way during that scene.
Can I just say really quickly?
That connected to the fledging, her book, The Fledging, about the vampires, symbiotics. She went into detail about the symbiotics and fledging.
Yeah, I just want to say really quickly, when I read that, I'm so glad you caught that out, because when I read that, I'm like, a symbiotic relationship is mutualistic, meaning that it benefits both parties, both organisms. I mean, you can't have, I think it comes in like 2 or 3. It's either mutualistic or parasitic. So when he said that specifically, I was like, technically no, because a symbiosis requires, trying to think of one, Finding Nemo. That's a symbiotic relationship. The orange Nemo and the coral reef, they are advantageous to each other. Mary is not advantageous to the entirety of the new race that exists. Yes, they get through the transition, so those who would have died doesn't, but, or however, comma, the symbiosis almost seems like more heavily beneficial to Mary than to everyone else, because they are still leashed. They are still like slaves in a way, and they don't see the full benefits of it. They can never break free. So even if they were to break free, that symbiotic relationship ends, because now who's to know what could come of being outside of this relationship. So I'm glad you caught that out, because I wanted to look at that man and say, that is not what that word means.
Let's think about it like this, y'all. But listen, there are benefits to being a patternist, right? They do get through transition. They do rise as a superhuman race. They will never be defeated, in this book at least. They can't be challenged. They reap all of the benefits of being telepaths. Like, there is some mutual give and take here. Like, she keeps them safe. She tells them, this is how you go do this thing. This is how you, like, the collective consciousness, right, of the pattern. We're moving outside of the technology lens, but the collective consciousness of the pattern allows them to be superhuman and superior. So in a way, I do think that is a payoff. I would give you some of my data, Mary, if you ensure that I'm going to be at the top of this food chain with you. And she does kind of do that.
Also receive strength from her. In the end of the book, she can give them back what she took. So, and she can heal them. So there is a benefit that they are receiving from her through the pattern.
Okay.
And I think also, like, for Doro, the only thing he can do is take. Like, he can very rarely give anything outside of pleasure in a way. So, like, for him, Mary is engaging in a symbiotic relationship that he was never able to do. And because of that,
Comment. I like that. Anna Walker author comment. That's not a benefit. Page 6 of 9. Page 7.
Okay, I know Michael. Okay, go ahead.
which he was never able to do. And because of that, like, he was never gonna, well, it was gonna take him much longer to get to his super race. As he said, it was gonna take him like hundreds and hundreds of years more to get there. But because Mary is able to give something to her people, it is much easier for her to create her own super race.
Hold on, y'all. Michael, I put your phone on mute, but if you can take it off mute, I'd like to hear what you got for us. Welcome to the panel. Let me see, because I can't undo it for you. So, okay, there you go, Michael. Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up? What you got?
So I'm visually impaired. So I'm legally blind. I didn't even mean to to join the live discussion. I was just kind of lurking in the background. But so I wasn't able to read this one because the trying to read the PDF with my voiceover on my computer, I just didn't have time. And normally I listen to the audiobooks when I'm like out and about on my way to and from work, and I couldn't really do that with this book. So I've just been kind of listening to the chat.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to read Survivor.
Yes, I have that saved on Libby. That's this week.
Okay, great. All right.
But thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, y'all. I know I cut somebody off. Where we at? We got a few minutes. Nothing. Okay. Let's see. Should we get into another question? Because we only got like a few minutes, and I'm hungry, so I ain't staying long. Y'all, now y'all ain't got nothing to say.
Well, my biggest op is no longer alive. So
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think, and yeah, those two are gone. So I'm doing the moonwalk. I don't know what's gonna happen with Mary, but you said that we're not gonna see her in the other book.
Yeah.
don't it jump ahead in time like a bit? Doesn't it jump ahead in time for
No, so the way that the way that the series is, yes, we have like gaps in time. So I guess I can start to prime us for Survivor in that way. Survivor is the story of the mutes. It is the story of the people who have lived under Patternist control, and in some way they have gone to space. Now, if you're on the Substack, I already told you that Clay Dana's ability to fly now is why we have Clay's arc, right? Which is the next book we're going to read after Survivor. A part of the backstory is that Clay, and I'm going to write this out on the Substack, but Clay eventually sells his power in some way to NASA. And this power, his ability to fly, he allows them to somehow duplicate this. And this is how the spaceships are able to get to space. So without Clay Dana, there is no Clay's arc, and there are no people, humans, leaving the Earth to space. To go to space. In Butler's notes, the only reason that the Patternists allowed the mutes to go to space is because they feared destruction. And we'll learn why once we get to Clay's arc, like who their rivals become. But they wanted the mutes, or they'll be called the missionaries because they turn to faith. They want some type of humanity to survive. And so they don't go to space themselves because the pattern keeps them grounded. They cannot break mental links with one another. So if one plane, not plane, sorry, I don't want to say that. If one spaceship goes down, it completely destroys a section of the pattern. So they can never leave space. So they permit, air quotes, they permit the missionaries to go to space to save humanity, or what we can call the human race. The issue with that is that the pattern, the mutes or the humans have been under colonial rule for so long that once they're free, because we like to romanticize what freedom looks like and how it feels and how you're able to move once you're uncolonized, or, you know, all of these things. Once they're free, they struggle. And this book is all about the struggle. Why do they struggle? They're no longer oppressed, but they've been oppressed for so long that now you give them freedom. How do they respond? How do they live? How do they survive? They don't have the tools. I also want to say that I'm trying to not give too much away. In Butler's notes, and just tuck this part in your pocket because I'm here, none of the spaceships were supposed to be able to come back to Earth. One does come back to Earth, which is how we get Clay's arc. Okay, so one does somehow, is defects, and it does come back to Earth. So now we have, when we get to Clay's arc, you have an alien organism from outer space back on Earth. Now you have a war. Okay, because it morphs.
Do you know how long between Mary and Survivor is that? How many years is that? Is that like centuries or?
I would have to look it up. I would have to look at my notes because I'm not.
Because like with Survivor, because it has been out of print, that's the one book I've never read before, and so I started looking at the PDF and started going through it, and I'm like, it's like, how far in the future is this?
Okay, so this is okay. In some ways, this is why I put it before, because the narrative is going to give you the backstory of a war between Clay arcs that happens in Clay's arc. You'll see the beginning of that war and Might of My Mind, but you need a bridge. If you don't have Survivor as the bridge, you're going to reject Clay's arc. And the reason why people reject Clay's arc is because they don't know enough information. So while Survivor does tell you, like, hey, we escaped, they let us leave because there was this war on Earth and they wanted to preserve humanity, there's so much information that you need to know before we get to that war and before we meet their rivals. So in human memory, in Survivor, you will get glimpses of the rivals that we will fully see take form in Clay's arc, but it's in their memories, right? And that's why I put it there. Also, the reason why I put it before Clay's arc is because the protagonist in Clay's arc was a missionary, and he is the one who comes back from space. And so if you only look at Clay's arc, you're going to say, why was he in space? How do we get this jump from an organism coming from outer space and a childhood minister turned astronaut? Something's not right here, right? And so that's the reason why I have us reading Survivor first. So some parts of the narrative will feel like, okay, this probably should come after Clay's arc or even after Pattern Master. But the reason I'm putting it here is because it bridges the gap and it gives you a lot of backstory, and it gives you a story that you would never get from the series itself because it privileges the telepaths and the Clay's arcs. But the humans, this whole series is built on the backs of those who don't have telepathic power. So it's going to move back and forth, which is why I said I'm going to do a lot of hand holding for this narrative. A lot. Because I want us to understand what's really going on. We can also talk about why Butler, rescinded the text, but that's not really my focus here. It's all about the narrative. We need to piece together this this world, because it's incomplete without this book. It really is. Yeah. See, Ali Star says, yes, I was so confused when I read Clay's arc. You will. You get from Patternist, and then you get to Clay's arc, and now there's an alien organism from outer space, and you're like, how do we get here? Something happened that you're not aware of. It all unfolds in Survivor.
I'm glad we're getting a chance to read this book because I read the Patternist series like 100 years ago, And the only thing I remember from it was Doro and not understanding Clay's art. So this is gonna be good to bridge the gap.
Valerie says, I didn't really care much for Clay's art. I want to see how you feel after you read Survivor. Because if you read Clay's art, it is like, this book doesn't fit. Why do we need this narrative? It doesn't make sense. Someone says, are we doing a PDF for Survivor? Yes, it's on the Substack. It was posted last week. Please download it to your computer, y'all, because I'm going to have to take it off the Substack. So I got some grad school notes. I was trying to piece it together. I understand it. That was my first read. But this is your opportunity to read a book that you won't have access to, right? Okay. Any questions? Anybody else?
How long do we have? How long are you able to leave the PDF up there before you have to take it down?
I'm gonna take it down after we finish the book. So we got 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I just can't. I don't think I can because legal I don't want the estate to sue. That's what I don't.
Yeah, licensing.
I don't got Butler money. I don't got it. And so I'm just trying to get y'all to, I think Christy, you can download it to your phone. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you could though. All you have to do is click download because it shows up as a PDF. But I don't want them coming after me. So please. And I didn't want to put it behind the paywall because y'all know we trying to read the book. Okay. But yeah, download it multiple places. I don't know. Email it to yourself. I think it did come through your email. Yeah. It came through your email. If you're subscribed to Substack and the Substack emails you reach you, you can just download it to your email and put it somewhere else. I don't know. But please get it. That's what I'm saying. Please get it. All right. Anybody else? Because we're done and I'm hungry.
Thank you.
Right. You're welcome. All right, y'all. Next week. Tomorrow the Survivor discussion questions will unlock. They're already uploaded, so they'll be open tomorrow 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm gonna start writing the post to help you bridge the gap, like I said, to help you understand this book a little bit more and help you appreciate it. This is Butler's first Afronaut. So if you're interested in Afrofuturism, an Afronaut is a black astronaut. And so this is the first Black woman in space at the time that people were writing about Black people leaving Earth to go to space or even in a science fiction vein. And so if people are speculating, oh, the stars, right, is very reminiscent of Lauren. Outer space is our destiny. What would it be like if you were not on colonized soil in a way? When you want to see what Butler thought about Black people going to space in 1978, this is the book. This is the book. And no, I'll write it on the Substack. I don't even want to get into the scholarship. Okay, that's all I got, y'all. That's all I got. Thank y'all for joining us. As always, this will be on YouTube tomorrow, the Octavia Butler mixtape course. I think the link is in my bio on YouTube. So if you missed the discussion or you want to catch a replay, all of the lives are uploaded there by the next day after class. And I can't wait to discuss Butler's rescinded texts next week. I'll holla y'all. Good night. Be safe. Happy reading.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Bye, y'all. All right.